listener production.
Hey, Chris Spyrou with you. Welcome to The Briefing. Elon Musk's copping a lot of heat at the moment, and with growing calls to boycott his companies, Tesla's definitely feeling the burn. So what does it mean for Aussies looking to make the switch to electric vehicles, and is the tech billionaire the only one getting in their way?
There's a lot of dis and misinformation out there to try and create that fear and uncertainty, to sow enough doubt that people go, maybe they're not quite there yet, maybe I'll go buy a hybrid. And that's very deliberate because we've got a lot of legacy car makers that only have hybrids on offer.
That interesting chat coming up in the second half of this episode. First though, it's time for headlines with Tara Cassidy on Tuesday, the 8th of April.
After spending most of yesterday trying to convince voters that they were the best party to deal with global economic uncertainty, Labor has pivoted back to its campaign strength: health. The Albanese government's now promised to invest $1 billion into mental health services if re-elected. The commitment will see 21 new Medicare mental health centres rolled out across the country, as well as 10 existing ones upgraded, and a major focus on servicing regional centres.
Yeah, and it's a commitment that comes almost a week after Peter Dutton committed $6.2 million to upgrading a youth mental health centre in Melbourne's West, at the time being one of his first major campaign promises, saying, quote, "It's only a Dutton coalition government who will address the youth mental health crisis." So we're seeing Labor kind of, coming out to correct the record a little bit there. Although to his credit, mental health was a key focus of his budget reply, where he pledged $400 million for youth mental health services and to permanently double Medicare subsidised psychologist sessions from 10 to 20 a year, a promise that Labor has not matched.
Staying with politics, and the election watchdog has enforced some new rules for politicians who collaborate with social media content creators, saying they'll need to add an authorisation message to the posts. The requirement extends only to politicians or parties who are cross-posting the content and not the content creators themselves.
The AEC says moving forward, content creators must have an authorised message on any content that is paid for or communicated on behalf of a political party or candidate, while outside of election periods, they're already forced to outline any posts that are paid partnerships, and you can kind of tell that with that little tag on Instagram that says, "This is a sponsored post." It says the exemption for news and genuine editorial content still remain, and it didn't rule out the fact that some social media influencers could fall within this group. Now, we did a 2-part deep dive looking into content creators in Australian politics yesterday, and we also put out a poll on our Instagram asking whether or not you think that's a good idea, whether you think that's a bad idea, and wow, did you guys have a lot to say. The comment section was going off on all of the posts, and to that poll specifically, over 200 of you replied to the question as to whether influencers belong in Australian politics, yay or nay. 88% of you said yes, and 12% of you, just 12% of you, said no. So very, very interesting results coming out there yesterday.
An inquest looking into the fatal Bondi Junction stabbing attacks, which is set to go ahead in 3 weeks' time, will look at potential failings in the mental health system in New South Wales and Queensland in the lead up to the killings. In April last year, Joel Cauchi killed 6 people and seriously injured several others at a Westfield shopping centre in Sydney's east before he was shot dead by police. Cauchi had gone off his schizophrenia medication before the killings, and there had been repeated warnings about his deteriorating mental health raised with authorities, Chris.
Yeah, the inquest will also examine things like the emergency response, the shopping centre security response, including why no alarm sounded inside the centre until after Cauchi was shot dead, and also the media coverage at the time, with the family saying they were caused further distress by some TV reports which showed graphic imagery. At a pre-inquest hearing yesterday, the coroner's court heard that a trauma-informed approach would be taken at the inquest later this month, with no sensitive CCTV or body cam vision to be shown. One of the victims' family members already has called for the inquest to be called off entirely due to the distress it would cause them, while the remaining victims' families have said they do want it to proceed. It's set to go ahead on April 28 through until May 30.
Yeah, and look, it's important to note that the purpose of the inquest, it's not to place blame on anyone or any organisations. Rather, they try and look at what can change to prevent something like this ever happening again. And I think it's actually really great that they are going to look at the media coverage and that they're highlighting this trauma-informed approach, because I've worked in traditional media and in this space, and I think it is entirely positive to strike a balance between covering news and communicating really important information to the public, but without doing so in a way that's further re-traumatising people. And in fact, it says that we should be doing that in our journalism guidelines and ethics, that saying that coverage shouldn't cause further harm to people. So that includes the use of, certain vision and images and everything like that. And the problem often is that there's very little enforcement over these type of things. And I did a crime podcast recently that was focused on a really horrific crime. And we also decided to take a trauma-informed approach because of this exact reason. And some of the feedback from the family and others involved was that that approach was appreciated. So it can be done.
Staying in New South Wales, where a 3-day strike is getting underway in the next few hours, with thousands of public hospital doctors across the state walking off the job. The union wants a 30% increase. The government's countered with a 10.5% increase over 3 years. New South Wales Health Minister Ryan Park saying while they're willing to negotiate, there will be a significant impact to the health system, calling on them to rethink it.
You simply can't have thousands of doctors threatening to walk off the job out of hospitals without having an impact on patient care.
That's him speaking to the Listener newsroom there. Now, this strike follows one earlier this year carried out by psychiatrists in New South Wales who threatened a mass resignation, again over pay and condition disputes, and also outlining the major staff shortages, putting an immense amount of stress on the system.
Now, relating to the doctor strike specifically today, though, we actually had a briefing listener reach out to us about it, and they say that they're a junior doctor in New South Wales at the moment and are saying that the strikes aren't just about wages for them, but also about working conditions. They reckon that they are rostered onto 14-hour weekend shifts without breaks and, quote, had times where I've worked 70-hour weeks because of unrostered overtime, and all they're asking for is safe working conditions and parity with other states, which apparently are paid significantly more and also get leave entitlements. And they're just saying that basically safe doctors equals safe patients. So it's really interesting. And look, we'd love to hear from more of you on this topic. If this is a sector that impacts you, that you work in, send us a DM on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast, leave us a comment on Spotify or a review on Apple to let us know what you think.
To the US now, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has touched down and at the time of recording is meeting with President Donald Trump. The Israeli PM's become the first foreign leader to visit Trump at the White House since he unleashed his tariffs on the world, hoping to reduce the 17% levy placed on his country.
I'm a free trade champion, and free trade has to be fair trade. And I think that's basically the position that you have put forward, Mr. President. We are going to eliminate the tariffs, and rapidly.
The situation in Gaza was also on the agenda.
It comes hours after French President Emmanuel Macron condemned Israel's latest wave of strikes in the region, with the IDF retaking 40% of the Gaza Strip since shattering the ceasefire last month. Macron, who's in Egypt to revive ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas, has also called on the militant group to return the remaining Israeli hostages, 24 who are still thought alive, while also rejecting any plans involving the displacement of Palestinians from the territory, a proposal Trump made the last time Netanyahu was in Washington back in February.
And Matildas fans have come out in force to watch the side seal their 2-game series with South Korea overnight. 28,000 spectators caught the 2-0 win in Newcastle, with interim coach Tom Samani saying the atmosphere was incredible.
The noise that they bring to the game and the passion that they bring to the game and the way they support the players and the team is just, it's a phenomenon. I find it really hard to describe it to people because it's something that I've never witnessed in my time in football.
Oh,
Wow.
that's actually really nice to hear. The way that the Tillies supporters show up time and time again is just, it's so heartwarming and it's so nice to see. And I know, and I've spoken about it on this podcast, so I know they haven't been doing great lately, but the national pride and the way that this country just gets behind them, and our Socceroos too, but more so our Tillies, it's incredible to watch. And I know it's having a trickle-down effect with grassroots programs like, we're creating the next generation of female soccer football players in this country, and that is great.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks for that, Tara. That brings our headlines to a close for today. Coming up next is my deep dive looking into the impact of Elon Musk and whether he can really, really affect the EV industry down under. Electric vehicles are having a moment, and in a worsening climate crisis with a full tank of petrol cracking triple digits, it's no wonder more and more of us are looking for alternatives. They're not only cleaner, but they're cheaper to run, and last year hit a record high, with EVs accounting for just under 10% of all new cars sold in Australia. But as our appetite down under grows, the once dominant industry leader, Tesla, is losing its grip on the market, with Elon Musk's foray into US and global politics turning more and more people off his brand. While it's looking pretty bad for the tech billionaire, what exactly does it mean for us here in Australia? Sarah Aubrey is an electrification and EV advocate and is also the brains behind Electrify This, and she joins me now. Sarah, welcome to the briefing. It feels like electric vehicles are slowly but surely on their way to becoming more mainstream in Australia. Do you think that trajectory, given everything that's happened over the last couple of months, is going to last?
Oh, yeah. You could just look to what's happening globally. Global sales are going absolutely gangbusters. I think plug-in hybrids have had a bit of a woo moment, but which is unfortunate for EVs. I think part of the reason for that actually is that the fringe benefits tax exemption for plug-in hybrids ended on the 1st of April. So we probably had quite a mad rush towards that. I think the next quarter will be interesting. I think looking month to month isn't a great idea. A lot of people are talking about EV sales being 14%, but that actually includes plug-in hybrids. I don't actually personally think that a plug-in hybrid is an electric car. It's a petrol car with a battery. Some people think differently, but unfortunately, EV sales have gone slightly backwards. They're 7.5% last month, less than a year ago, but they're still going up year on year. They're going up, not by as much as we would like, but they are continuing to rise. And overseas, they're rising really, really quickly. So it's not just a moment, it's a transition.
So just clarifying those numbers there that you just rattled off, they're Australian specific or are they global?
Those are
numbers?
Australian numbers. I think in China, if you include plug-in hybrids and electric cars, they're over 50% of new car sales now have a battery of some sort, which is pretty amazing.
So in terms of those, let's just say the EV portion of that 14% rise, what do we know about the people who are driving and buying electric vehicles at the moment?
There would be fleet buyers in that because of the fringe benefits tax exemption and businesses, even small businesses. But actually, it's not the inner city people that people seem to think it is. It's actually people in the outer suburbs of our cities. They've done the numbers. They've got a driveway. They've probably got solar on their roof. They've done the numbers. They're doing a lot of driving and they've just gone, it makes sense. And they're saving so much money. And these are not potentially super wealthy people, but we've got electric cars now. We've got the BYD Dolphin, for example, the base model of that, brand new car. Before on-road costs, $29,990. It's got a 2 in front of it for a brand new car. So that's where we're getting to with electric cars. So this myth that they're not affordable, that's still a lot of money to people. But imagine in 2 to 3 years' time what that vehicle will cost secondhand. We're creating an amazing secondhand market right now.
In your opinion, how geared up is Australia at the moment for electric vehicles to become more and more popular? And what I mean by that is also connectivity, like the charging stations is the key one that most people think about, but even the second parts industry, like how geared is Australia towards sustaining a growth in electric vehicles?
Well, I'll answer your second thing first, which is a lot less goes wrong with electric cars because an internal combustion engine car has over 2,000 moving parts. An EV has only about 30-something moving parts. So initially, straight off the bat, there's a lot less to go wrong. And servicing those cars is a lot cheaper. And I think you've got businesses like BYD or Geely coming into the market, and they are absolutely committed to being here, staying here, building their brands to be as big as the dominant Japanese car makers, no doubt. So they're going to have those parts on hand. They've already set up servicing agreements with, My Car Tyre and Auto or UltraTune. They've got whole deals in place to create a proper network to support those vehicles. And it's interesting on the electric charging front, on the DC charging front, I think you're referring to, which is the fast charging, those big chargers with the cables, and you can charge the car quickly. We've spent a lot of money regionally for those long distance drives. I think we need to spend more money in our inner cities for people like me who don't have a driveway but live in the inner city. But the people who usually say there aren't enough chargers or worry about range anxiety, invariably they're people who don't actually own an electric car. If you ask an EV driver, they themselves don't seem to worry about it because the vast majority of EV owners will just charge at home. That's over 80% of people can charge at home. So we need to service people like me who can't charge at home? Sure. We need to work on those long-distance trips? Sure. But you need to stop, right? You need to stop and take a break on those journeys. And we're talking a 15, 20-minute charge, maybe 30 minutes that you're topping up. You don't have to go to 100%. That last 10% in an electric car is actually really slow. So you just charge the car to 90 and you're on your way. And the car will tell you, it'll plot it out, and it's actually quite stress-free. So we just need to make sure that all those chargers are working. So the maintenance of them is important. But they're going in all the time. We're getting, the network is just growing and growing. It's quite extraordinary, but I think people worry about it a bit too much. There's a lot of dis and misinformation out there to try and create that fear and uncertainty, to sow enough doubt that people go, maybe they're not quite there yet. Maybe I'll go buy a hybrid. And that's very deliberate because we've got a lot of legacy car makers that only have hybrids on offer. And so they're trying to push you into what they have right now because they haven't shifted to EVs. They bet the house on hydrogen, wasn't the future, and now they're frantically backpedaling and going, buy an old hybrid tech, go do that. Yeah, great. And in 5 years' time when we have an EV, we'll ask you to buy a car again. So it's a bit disingenuous if you ask me.
Which gives us the perfect segue. Speaking about uncertainty and backpedaling, the people are turning on Elon Musk, and we're seeing that through Tesla's sales falling and recording their largest drop in deliveries in its history this quarter. Do you think that's translating in Australia? And ultimately, do you think it will slow our transition to EVs?
I think it's definitely had an effect. I think Australia is a bit different because in America, you don't really have a lot of choice about what EV you buy. It's predominantly Tesla. You've got maybe Rivian, GM, you've got some Fords, but there's not a great deal of choice. And of course, you've got the network itself, the charging network, and here in Australia, it's the same, are Teslas, and they are fantastic. I personally am really kind of against this attack on Tesla as a company. I think if you're angry at Elon Musk, direct your anger at Elon Musk. The people who work for Tesla, there's over 100,000 people who work for Tesla. They didn't sign up for this. The people who bought Teslas and did the right thing and decarbonised and spent their hard-earned cash on an electric vehicle, they didn't sign up for this. And now they feel ashamed driving their cars, or some people's cars are even being attacked. That's appalling. And probably a bunch of these people saying these things probably still drive fossil fuel cars, which is a far worse industry. I'm like, get in the bin. Look, there's no doubt. There's two things going on. There's no doubt that Musk's behaviour has affected and damaged the Tesla brand, but we are just about to see a transition to the brand new Tesla Model Y. And so there's some interesting numbers around the Tesla Model Y in Australia. So in the month of March, over 1,700 people bought the old Tesla Model Y. That's more than January and February combined. If we look at the next quarter with the brand new Tesla Model Y coming out, that will be the test. Then we'll know. I think then we'll go, how damaged is the brand? But I can tell you right now, it's very febrile online, but a lot of people don't care about US politics. And they are still, to this day, absolutely one of the best cars you can buy.
I do want to talk about one of the brands we've mentioned a few times here, and that's the Chinese EV maker BYD. It's been announced that they overtook Tesla in revenue last year. What do you think of BYD and how it's managed to grow so quickly and aggressively?
I think BYD will be the biggest car brand in the world. It will overtake Toyota by 2030. They make everything in-house associated with that car. They make every part of that car, going right down to the minerals and the batteries. They were first to market, so I think that was a real advantage for them. But when you do a bit of research into them as well, they've been making batteries since the 1990s, phone batteries. They make half of Apple's iPads. We're talking seriously good batteries. So you have that. And when you get in their cars, the fit and finish is like a European car. It is very, very good, surprisingly good. And you get all the bells and whistles that you have to pay a lot for in a legacy car brand. You get sunroofs, electric sunroofs, you get heated and ventilated seats, heated steering wheel, all those bits and bobs. And they innovate. The Chinese are making 80% of the world's electric cars, and they are honestly, they're the best in the world. Their battery tech is ahead of everyone else practically. And they see our market as a testing ground before they send it to Europe. They've got tariffs there. We don't have tariffs here. And I think we're going to benefit from that because we're going to see a lot of Chinese brands fighting for dominance, potentially a bit of a price war, and we'll be the beneficiaries of that.
I'm curious to get your take on whether you're across this aspect of it, but, you know, a lot of consumer experts have been saying to choose your purchase of car carefully in this uncertain economic climate and uncertain global climate. You know, we had a guest on a few weeks ago who mentioned the thing with Tesla as you've also got to be mindful of who's making it and where your data and information is kind of going towards and who controls the computer that runs your car. Is that something that's seeping into conversations when it comes to BYD, and is that something that's influencing consumer behaviour in Australia?
I see it come up a little bit. I don't think it's a big thing. I think it was brought up in the US as a protectionist thing with their own vehicle industry, a bit of fear-mongering. Usually I see it typed in comments on platforms like Facebook, which are taking a hell of a lot more of your data than your car is. I think you'd be pretty crazy as a car brand to do that. In fact, other legacy car brands have been caught out. I think Volkswagen recently were caught out with people's data being leaked online. So, yeah, I think it's a bit of a non-issue.
What's your advice to our listeners who want an EV but are holding back on price and uncertainty at the moment? What brand should they be keeping their eye on?
I'll start with the brands. I think BYD, XPeng and Geely are probably the brands to watch. I think they'll be the three top dominant brands in Australia. Geely own Polestar and Volvo as well. I'd say if you have a driveway, please, honestly, you're going to get a car and go, why did I not do this sooner? Can you imagine waking up to a full, and I put in inverted commas, tank of fuel in the morning, or charging for free from your roof if you have solar? It is so easy. Every time I go and charge at my mum's, I'm like, oh my God, this is so simple. And just not having to get the hassle of going to a stinky fuel station. And you know what? Test driving an electric car, even if you're not ready, even if you're just like curious, go and test drive a whole bunch of cars because it's free. And I challenge you not to have a stupid grin on your face at the end of it, because there is nothing more addictive than instant talk.
Oh, wow. Talk about a sales pitch. I'm ready to go buy one. I'm ready to go outside right now and buy one. Hey, Sarah Aubrey, thank you so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Pleasure.
That was Sarah Aubrey from Electrify This speaking with me there. Curious to get your read on all of this. Has Elon Musk put you off buying or even owning a Tesla? And how are you feeling about an EV now after listening to Sarah's little sell right there? It's def's a growing space to watch, and time will tell whether we're living through a moment or a transition, like Sarah says. Get in touch with us in the comment section of this episode or head to our Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. We'd love to hear from you and get all your thoughts on this. With that said, that is it for this episode of The Briefing. Don't forget, the afternoon edition with Tash Belling will be in your feeds this afternoon. And like always, Tara Cassidy and I will be back in your ears tomorrow morning with another dose of headlines and a fascinating deep dive. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Chris Spyrou, and I'll catch you next time.
Listener.